This is another sign of the times, an analysis and a commentary. Senator urges bigger cuts to the nuclear arsenal. The chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee called on the Obama administration to seek cuts in nuclear warheads far beyond the requirements of current treaties. The chairman, Senator Carl Levin, Democrat of Michigan, said the administration should consider going far lower than the warhead caps set by the New START agreement with Russia to bring the nation's arsenal in line with a diminished nuclear threat and tighter military budgets. I can't see any reason for having as large an inventory as we are allowed to have under New START in terms of real threat, potential threat, the senator said. Under the treaty, signed in 2010, Russia and the United States must reduce their deployed strategic warheads to 1,550 each over a 6-year period, down from 2,200 under previous agreements. Thousands more warheads can be kept in storage as spares, and the limits do not apply to the hundreds of short-range nuclear weapons that each side has. A grave concern today is that nuclear weapons, or their fissile components, may fall into the hands of terrorist organizations, the senator said. Again, a grave concern today is that nuclear weapons, or their fissile components, may fall into the hands of terrorist organizations, the senator said. The more weapons that exist out there, the less secure we are, rather than the more secure we are, he added. In other words, it's time to connect the dots. The death of an Estonian explosive ordnance disposal technician in Libya this spring illustrates the continuing problem of loose weapons stockpiles, almost a year after Colonel Gaddafi was driven from power. The technician died in March while examining unexploded munitions scattered near a police compound and checkpoint as part of his work for the non-governmental group Danish Church Aid. The checkpoint had been fought over by rival Libyan militias 3 nights before. The groups were arguing over access to 22 shipping containers of Gaddafi-era munitions, according to the aid group's investigation. One of the containers was struck during the fighting and caught fire. The explosion that followed ruptured at least 11 containers, heaving into the air a poorly stored collection of grenades, rockets, and mortar rounds, some of which landed almost 500 yards away. The munitions, once seen by Libya's armed groups as instruments for breaking free from internal repression and making the country safe, were then scattered near houses, a mosque, and a school along Libya's main coastal road. The inadequately trained militias and ad hoc police officers had stored rockets and shells with fuses inserted, a configuration that compounded their dangers. Among this refuse were 122 millimeter rockets containing Type 84 landmines, one of the most volatile weapons in Libya's pre-war stocks. No one yet knows how much modern ordnance Libya has acquired from the 1950s or in the decades afterward, as Colonel Gaddafi's security structure swelled in size and shopped for arms throughout the world. And no one knows how much remains, how much is scattered next to bunkers that NATO bombed, and how much found its way into makeshift depots. There just haven't been enough people and assets to go everywhere and look at everything, said the program manager for the United Nations Mine Action Service in Libya. Several non-governmental organizations working with the United Nations have been destroying mines and ordnance since last year. In all, they have cleared 82 schools and nearly 3,000 houses and removed or destroyed more than 233,000 mines and pieces of ordnance through late May. And with these many dangers still present, international aid groups have documented 109 accidents related to mines and unexploded ordnance since the war began last year. The accidents wounded 204 people, at least a quarter of them fatally, according to United Nations data. But the data probably significantly understate the number of accidents. Connecting the dots. A grave concern today is that nuclear weapons or their fissile components may fall into the hands of terrorist organizations. The more weapons that exist out there, the less secure we are, rather than the more secure we are. President Obama has set a goal of eventually eliminating all nuclear weapons, but the specific steps and timetable remain aspirational. The administration has nearly completed a review of warhead options for the President's consideration, ranging from a figure near the New START limits down to just 300 to 400 warheads. A middle option with an arsenal of some 1,000 warheads has been gaining support among some government experts. Administration officials say Mr. Obama has not yet made his choice. Mr. Levin said he supported, in broad terms, the analysis set forth in a recent study by General James E. Cartwright, the retired Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and former commander of the nation's nuclear arsenal. That study suggested that effective deterrence could be maintained with an arsenal of 900 strategic warheads. All three legs of the nation's strategic nuclear triad, bombers, land-based missiles, and submarines, are approaching retirement age. Facing an era of restricted spending, Pentagon planners do not want to invest in replacement weapons that may be retired quickly under any new round of negotiations to limit warheads, because it will cost a lot of money. Also, the dots are connecting. One makes very few friends by blowing them up. Remember the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's not normally regarded as a cardinal rule of foreign policy. In that realm, an eye for an eye seems closer to the norm. Last week, the New York Times published two important articles on how the Obama administration is using American power in ways that remain poorly understood by most Americans. The first described Obama's targeted assassination policy against suspected terrorists, and the second describes the U.S. cyber warfare campaign against Iran. Reasonable people might disagree about the merits of both policies, but what could be found troubling is the inevitable secrecy and deceit that is involved. It's not just that we are trying to fool our adversaries. The problem is that we end up fooling ourselves too. When our government is doing lots of hostile things in far-flung places around the world, and the public doesn't know about them until long after the fact, then we have no way of understanding why the targets of U.S. power might be angry and hostile. As a result, we would tend to attribute their behavior to other darker motivations. And we keep wondering, why do they hate us? Well, maybe some people are mad because we are doing things that we would regard as unjustified and heinous acts of war if anyone dared to do them to us. What about doing to others as you would have them do unto you? Perhaps Americans should not be so surprised or so outraged when others are angered by actions that we would find equally objectionable if we were the victims instead of the perpetrators. And if we keep doing unto others in this way, it's only a matter of time before someone does it to us in return. Again, a grave concern today is that nuclear weapons, or their fissile components, may fall into the hands of terrorist organizations. The senator said, "The more weapons that exist out there, the less secure we are, rather than the more secure we are," he added. It's time to connect the dots. And this too is another sign of the end of times as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary happenings, events, and changes. Everything that must change quickly or rapidly, and for the better, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations, and that should be a very important question to ask. Revelation chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. 9. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom or nation was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the God of heaven, because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. Yes, it's time for the spiritual and physical manifestation of the book of Revelation. This is the message from the messenger, and all these are more signs. Connecting the dots. The United States method of war slides into the shadows. High-tech fight raises many questions. After a decade of costly conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, the American way of war is evolving toward less brawn, more guile. Drone aircraft spy on and attack terrorists with no pilot in harm's way. Small teams of special operations troops quietly train and advise foreign forces. Viruses sent from computers to foreign networks strike silently with no American fingerprint. It's war in the shadows, with the U.S. public largely in the dark. The high-tech warfare allows President Obama to target what the administration sees as the greatest threats to U.S. security without the cost and liabilities of sending a swarm of ground troops to capture territory. Some of them, almost certainly, would come home maimed or dead. But it also raises questions about accountability and the implications for international norms regarding the use of force outside of traditional armed conflict. And that is a part of the problem. Congressional oversight of these operations appears to be cursory and insufficient. Said an expert for government secrecy issues for the Federation of American Scientists, a private group. It is Congress's responsibility to declare war under the Constitution, but instead it appears to have adopted a largely passive role, while the executive takes the initiative in war fighting. Some in Congress, particularly those lawmakers most skeptical of the need for U.S. foreign interventions, are objecting to the administration's drone wars. They are demanding a fuller explanation of how, for example, drone strikes are authorized and executed in cases in which the identity of the targeted terrorist is not confirmed. Our drone campaigns already have virtually no transparency, accountability or oversight, 26 members of Congress wrote to President Obama. Yes, it's time for prophecy to be fulfilled. Revelation chapter 9. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. 3. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. 4. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those humans which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a human. 6. And in those days shall humans seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Revelation chapter 22, verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every human according as his work shall be. 13. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And all these are more signs